You're looking for...
Yeah, see, that's it.
I said I've had this longer than I've had my wife and kids. It's a piece of me.
Who's there? Connecting rod. That's good.
Kale, mostly known as Kale. It sounds like a vegetable and easier to remember than Jim. And been working on Volkswagens for probably about half my life at this point, if not a little bit more.
So about 78 years now?
78 years, we can round it. So the beginning of this car was a trade on a Mark II from a girl I'd been seeing after high school, college type. And she didn't want it anymore. She wanted something newer. I saw it as basically a workhorse, made it a runner from there. It was a daily driver. It set up the back seat as a flat, kind of didn't have a pickup, so this would be the junkyard hauler for all the other rabbits we were pulling out of fields.
That was this car?
This car, yeah. Flat back and hatch open, doors open, running up to easy pull and any other junkyards, all you could carry. We would load this thing for bear, bring it back so we can make all the nicer cars runners, and then throw the seats back in it and use it as a daily again to get back and forth to class and my jobs.
How long ago was this? Like, what year did you get this car? What year was all this going down?
98, 99-ish, I want to say, is when I put this on the road. It's been off the road since probably 2001 up until this year. It's an 84 Rabbit Diesel LS running on a 1.9 TDI out of a 98 Jetta. It was originally a 1.7 5-speed gasser, and then it became a 1.8 GTI JH block, trans, the whole nine. Coney adjustables with the typical H&R springs at that point in time. That was the cup kit of choice with all the sway bars that you could put on it. And it drove like that for a long time. And then I got into junkyards and finding turbos on Saabs and Volvos, and came across Callaway kits. So I've run through Callaway parts, I've run through like ATP turbo. It was going to be a G60 1.9 liter turbo, never finished that, sold all that stuff.
Guys, it's okay to abandon shit.
Yep, there you go.
It's
Then it was going to go to a 2-liter ABA, and life changed the direction on that. All that stuff got thrown into a Mark II that I dailied for a while. It happens.
It's for the better sometimes. You got to worry about your sanity first sometimes. People.
I laugh because of, over the 20 years of having this car, it's the one that stuck around, and the nicer ones and whatever else, they just moved on. They got sold, etc. And I mean, not that this isn't nice, it does what it has to, but it's definitely not everybody's cup of tea. If you're saying you're saving a car for some reason, isn't the one you normally...
I guess, but you have some history with this. Just the fact that it was like I don't know how to word it, but like the parts doctor, and to say like the organ donor transport vehicle.
Yeah, this was the support vehicle for everybody at the time. If you're coming to my parents' garage, this thing was driving us around for food and getting any kind of parts. And honestly, it's crazy that it's been off the road. Basically, it was my fault, or we can say ethanol adding to fuel before we actually knew ethanol was in fuel. I detonated the motor to the point where it looked like shot peen had been left in the cylinders, and then I took it apart and started the other.
So it blew up how long ago?
I'm telling you, it's probably like 2001. 2000.
Okay, so okay, and it's sat ever since up until this year.
Yeah, each time I started to put it together, I got hit with another setback, whether it was, the parents getting sick, my old man passing away suddenly, children coming along, changing of homes, whatever it was, life changed things. So I prioritized. This wasn't at the top of the priority list.
Yeah, well, if your life isn't in order, these are absolutely the last thing.
It's proof that it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah,
it's stuck around. So it's been indoors. It pretty much was rot free. I did notice that from driving it through all the weather, I did have some patches on this floor here, which have all been repaired. And then I just put all new bushings and brake lines, stainless steel, everything got the Kale treatment here, where it's back to being a solid runner. That's not to say it wasn't without a fight, because there's been a 5-year battle with this car with not wanting to leave the garage. I think it got too comfy. Yeah. So it took an awful lot of people to get it to that point and to keep me from wanting to just shove it outside and let it burn.
Oh, it's time, money, there's a whole lot that goes into bringing something like that back out onto the road. And yeah, I mean, people keep asking like, oh, what's going on with the K-swap? I'm like, mentally, I got to a point. You got to just step back. Financially, money was the big thing, but it's like, okay, sometimes you need to know when to step back and revisit.
Absolutely.
When we're not 17, 18 years old anymore, where we can just obsess and spend all our time, money, and energy on one car the whole time.
No, and as you know, with being a homeowner, it sucks more money out of you than, I guess you could say these can too, but when family comes into play, these just aren't the priority.
Yeah.
So, to be honest, since it hit the road, I've been in it since Madness, and I have over 3,000 miles on it since, with no real hiccups except, some debris hitting a brake line and taking that out on me one day on the way to work. But yeah, that type of shit happens. It's nothing of its own fault.
Yeah, little stuff. It's cool that you...
But the brakes are fixed, no concern, we're good.
That kid Dennis with the black imported Golf.
No.
He's like halfway through, he's like, yeah, the throttle sticks. I'm like, oh. Like wide open sticks.
I was driving last week with some friends and...
Oh, it sticks?
Yeah, it just sticks. If you go like half throttle, full throttle, it just gets stuck. It's okay. If you tap a couple times, just...
If we die, we die.
Exactly.
Like it's okay, he said. Oh, okay.
We'll survive.
Tell us about your love for PA, your clothing brands.
So I got in love with the nature aspect. My buddy Brian, I grew up with, got me out and about. The guy's been a traveler since I've known him, and still is to this day. And got to see a ton of stuff that I wouldn't have normally even realized kind of was out here, and my love for Pennsylvania grew. We even took a trip out to for his bachelor party to like the abandoned turnpike, rode our mountain bikes out there and made mountain bike trails from there, from Pennsylvania. We ended up in DC, Maryland, etc. So tying that into what we're driving today, these little cars came out of a Westmoreland plant in Pennsylvania, and when I learned that, I basically ditched all the other Volkswagens for the most part and stuck with these.
Just like an obsession of sorts?
Yeah, it became kind of a neat tie-in that I'm driving something that came from the state. I mean, I was made here. These cars were made here, so I just kind of, I latched onto them, and not this, I mean, I had enough parts to keep a bunch of them running, so it just, it seemed to fit.
Well, they're like Legos. You've got some Mark III stuff in here.
So yeah, this is definitely a mashup of a vehicle where it's a little bit of everything I've owned stuck into one vehicle at this point. And it was just to make it work, what I thought simpler if something went bad and I had more of something else. That's what I rolled with.
Right.
But to bring it to the brand, we're talking probably about 11 years ago now. My old man was mowing the lawn, tripped, caught his temple on his tailgate, had a brain hemorrhage, and that was that. And then a year later, my mom's cancer returned, pretty severe, most likely from the stress, they're thinking, but that caused her to be out of work. So I wasn't really a big fan of the GoFundMes. I never knew how to follow them. I wasn't sure how it would go, and I wanted a way of trying to help out because we were then covering my mom's bills plus ours. So I started making t-shirts and got invited to shows to have these t-shirts there as a way of generating income to cover my mom's bills.
Which one was the first shirt?
First shirt was No Place Like Home, which is the Pennsylvania backdrop with a rabbit in the center. We got an overwhelming response of we'd rather have black shirts. So since then, unless there's a popular request or it's the Kick Asphalt Motorsports Blue, they're usually always on black tees because that's what I've been asked for.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the green one. Yeah, I like that shirt so much I'd have two of them. But so yeah, I guess the name, where'd the name come from?
So the name wasn't Westy Wears until just recently. My parents' home was on Federal Street. So anything that we were doing out of there was called Federal Innovations because it could be really anything, to be honest with you. Always, we had to build, we had to make things work, so we were innovating, and that's where that came from. And that's what I rebranded when I started doing the shirts, and they all came out as Federal Innovations, or Federal Innovations prints.
Right.
And if you end up getting a shirt and you see that, we're the same thing. I thought everyone pretty much was happy with them. I won't lie, I got consumed with life. Children, schooling, work.
Well, you're not only starting a clothing brand, but you're also,
which I didn't set out to do. It was just
right. But you don't realize it going into it because everything you got going at your home life. But not only are you starting a clothing brand, but you're trying to support your parent, your mom.
Correct.
You're trying to fix some stuff at home.
So each year we came out with a different design and then ran the old design also, which we stuck to. And then I stopped for a while because, to be honest, I was thrilled with everyone's support, but I figured everyone pretty much had the people that wanted to support had the shirt already. What I didn't count on was that the shirts would get old or damaged or worn out. And I started having friends and members of the community reach out to me, when can you do another run? I'm like, I didn't know there was a need for it. I mean,
right.
You could always ask. I'm available. There's how many ways to contact people these days. So here there was.
And was that kind of the motive? You kind of woke up one day and were like, let's make some more designs?
Yeah. So it was. I mean, the designs. Oh, we're tarred and shipped. Sorry. Yeah. So I had the designs. Like, it was a creative release during a tough time. I also put together a motorcycle during that time as well, just to weld, put down, world off type stuff. But the designs were in my mind, but I didn't execute on them because I kind of thought everyone was good. So when we came back around, and you could say came back online and started making things available again, I decided maybe I should actually have something more than a name than just, hey, it's Kale with another pop-up tent with a bunch of shirts.
Right.
And set it up that we went with Westy Wears because I basically have stuck with just earlier late Westy Mark 1s, and that's basically that's where my heart is.
I just started diving into upstate New York lately and falling in love with the state the same way that you described you falling in love with this state. There's just so much to see in your home state.
It's amazing.
It is.
When
guys, travel your home state more.
Absolutely. Younger days, when I was dating my wife, I had a touring bike which had saddles on the back. It was a Ducati ST2. You have your biking background.
Right.
And my wife and I had a goal that we started hitting state parks
So
And
what got you into Volkswagens from the get-go then? What was your first Volkswagen?
First Volkswagen was a Corrado.
Oh,
I made the mistake of starting big on that one.
They must have been relatively new.
They were.
How old are you?
So I'm 44 this year. 43, 44. I'm losing track.
So what year was that you had?
I got
one?
a Corrado in '96.
Okay, yeah, they were just fresh out of the dealers at that point.
And my buddy had gotten a Nugget Yellow one, a G60, and absolutely fell in love with it. And I worked multiple jobs. I was a slave to the Corrado. Thus why we had green Corrado mirrors on this car, but my man's Chase made sure that they were color coded for you today. But
yeah, Chase put in some work to get this thing.
Yeah, he cleaned it up. Or he said 20 years of kind of looking like every one of my cars meshed into one was enough.
Oh, that's funny.
So, bear with me here.
Yeah.
We are in the country. I didn't mean to be on this road, so I'm getting cursed out at the moment.
Yeah, Chase is definitely.
No.
Chase is behind us.
My bad, bro.
Oh man. I had a 337 GTI as my first car. That was in 05, 06. I was 16 at the time, paying off a $14,000 car.
Yeah,
I was a slave to that car.
That's exactly that's exactly what it was, and made a lot of mistakes. It was a lovely car.
I feel like that's just always the case when we're young. I mean, how old were you when you grabbed that?
It was like right out of I still had it. I was 96, 95, 96. Yeah, I was literally graduating high school. Had graduated high school.
Was that your first car?
No, my first car was a '82 Oldsmobile Omega.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, Corrado, fresh out of high school. Yeah.
Worked multiple jobs, and the end of the Corrado was I gave it to my dad so he could trade it in, and what ended up being his last brand new car. Because I had this and an '89 GLI, and I was perfectly happy with my Helios and this car, which is what ended up being what gave us this nice Helios interior in here. But I sold the car with another interior I got out of a junkyard. Didn't crash it, folks. That car left and was in good hands and good condition. I just wanted the minty interior for my daily.
Yeah. Not much more than a friend bought a Corrado and you had to get one too.
That's exactly what it was, yeah. And our other buddy, Adam, had a pearl white and purple Mark II GTI, which his dad and him worked on and painted. And I just started basically becoming a Volkswagen guy because that's what was around me. I mean, it's been a long run. Obviously, we can all attest there's been way too much time and money put into them yet, but here I am in my 40s, daily driving something I daily drove, you know, in my...
It's great to see you get back into it, though, because, I mean, kind of, with all that you had going on with life the last few years, you kind of lost touch with it a bit, right?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say it ever ran away because there's enough of them in the stable. I mean, to the point where I sold a Cashmere GTI and a bunch of other stuff to get married and have a house, have the Ducati, travel, etc.
Right.
And I mean, in my head, I'm like, that was a mistake because the thing was cherry.
Right.
Now when you see with the price tag. And in selling that, no matter what car I was driving, my buddy Brian I mentioned earlier, we had like the yin and yang version of, I had a Cashmere, he had a black one. My kids, he would show up, couldn't take my car. We always had to ride with Uncle Brian and, you know, his GTI there. At one point, Brian and I went on an adventure and to Virginia, and we picked up another Cashmere GTI, which I then I've been throwing all of my NOS, Callaway, whatever I could have still on the shelf at it. And I've had it at Madness already. It's been a great car. So it's still been in them, still moving around.
How many Mark Ones do you have currently?
1, 2, 3. I have 3. 2 run.
That's good. 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3.
0 of my 1.
Yeah, that's right.
Run. Oh man.
I wonder how they want us to park here, bud.
I would just fucking go right up onto the grass down there by the dumpster where these things belong.
That's right.